You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Totemly Drunk, and tonight on episode 144, we'll be discussing the latest in Overwatch esports, see what's buzzing in this week's hot community topics, and share our Overwatch League Season 2 rankings, started at number 10 and finishing up at that number 6 spot. Before we can get into the news and introduce you to my co-host, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who is in and out with us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as per usual, is my co-host, ready to explain any and all geographical jokes, is Edinar. And Ed, you know, we've been blanketed with snow and skins that have plenty of facial hair, dashing a culmination of contenders across the globe, and that made for one hell of a week in Overwatch. But how has this past week been treating you, my friend?
This past week's been going good. Like you said, we got destroyed by snow here in good old Wisconsin. I was actually off work the other day, which was nice, except I had to go into work this morning at 5 a.m. because I had off yesterday. But, it's been fun watching a lot of contenders. Watching both Australia and South America, is a good 9 hours of watching contenders, which is a lot of contenders to watch. But some good matches, some good upsets. Spoilers. And we got some bearded skins, although the last one they showed screwed it all up. It could have... no. They failed on that one. They could have released the Orisa skin and not the Tracer skin, and then we would have had, full beards throughout the whole thing. But no, they screwed with us. We got some, minor things dropped on us. I've been playing a lot of my Blame Canada account, my DPS account. It takes longer to get to 25 than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on 7 hours played now on that account, and I'm at level 16. I'm like, that seems excessive just to get into comp. But I'm doing so I can make Spider's life a living nightmare. So, how's your week been in, Overwatch gaming, Snowpocalypse, all that fun stuff?
Well, I did not get to have a day off of work. I also didn't have to go into work a lot earlier than I normally would, so that's a thing. But, we're kind of, doing, a remodel in our store, so it's been just a complete cluster F. So that's been fun. A lot of people have been complaining about that. Outside of that, hasn't been too bad. Obviously, we got a lot going on with Fantasy Overwatch League. We have HighNoon.gg launching here February 4th. We got our live draft already planned out. Looking forward to that. We'll probably even be looking at doing kind of like an alpha draft after this podcast tonight. And I really haven't had a chance to really jump into the event as of yet, outside of just logging in, getting the player icon, and opening the free loot box, which of course was all new items, sure, but nothing of actual use, so there is that. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into this week's news and see what's going on within the game. So, if you guys don't know, we have the return of Lunar New Year. And this event kicked off earlier this afternoon, which is Thursday, January 24th. Not a normal record night, but, here we are. And this year's event is the Year of the Pig. Or at least it would be, but, with all the bearded skins, no one is actually going to call it Year of the Pig. So there is that. So, Ed, last year, it was the Year of the Dog. We got the Puppy Rumble. Are we going to get any sort of cheeky shenanigans in regards to this event?
I mean, I want to see some of the Overwatch League players try and chase a greased up pig. I don't know why that's what I want to see, but that's what I want to see. I want to see, Fissure trying to chase a greased up pig around the Blizzard Arena. I would find it hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I feel we would have kind of heard about something or seen something. I mean, this is probably the event they're gonna be putting the least amount of stuff behind because there's something much bigger coming out in the next few weeks. In the Overwatch League, I don't know, and the preseason All Star, well, I don't know what the hell they're calling it, but it's the preseason All Star game format preseason with shenanigans. And so I feel like they're going to be concentrating more on that than putting out extra content for this. So I don't know. Do you think we'll see anything cheeky and greased up piggy?
You know what? Probably not. Yes, the Overwatch League is right around the corner, but I felt like, the puppy brawl is one thing, and that was all about, adoption, and it's a lot easier to adopt a puppy than it is a baby piglet. Or who knows,
Even though they're cleaner.
Maybe they're just going to be serving up a ton of bacon. I don't know.
I don't know. I feel there's a lot of vegetarians.
This is
in the
true.
OWL community that would be real pissed.
But, this is Year of the Pig, yet Roadhog is really nowhere to be seen, and I don't know what gives with that.
You know what? That's a good point. Like, how does he not, have the main skin? Blizzard drops the ball again.
Yeah, right?
Not a fan. Not a fan.
But,
what would they have given? I feel his skin isn't enough for Roadhog. They would have needed to give him a legendary emote.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been him, roasting a pig on, a spit over a fire, just rotating around and around.
Yeah, like a rotisserie.
Yes. So I feel they could have done that. Again, why don't I work for Blizzard? I come up with one good idea every few months, and that is what they should pay me for.
And then it goes to waste.
It does. Yeah, no, they blew it on this one already.
Well, anyways, Year of the Pig is going on right now, and that event will be going through February 18th. So, with Lunar New Year, that means we get the return of Capture the Flag, and I know not the biggest fan of CTF, but we do get the return of competitive Capture the Flag. We also have Busan kind of added to the rotation for competitive Capture the Flag, or just, CTF kind of across the board. And if you haven't played CTF, I will tell you this, expect to see a ton of Wrecking Ball. Because the last time we had this event, Wrecking Ball was not even in the game, and the amount of disruption he can do in CTF is absolutely absurd, so expect to see a lot of him. That being said, you can't be rolling around while you have the flag, so, he can't be the primary carrier, but he's really good at those defensive holds, so keep an eye on that. So, over the last week or so, we've been seeing a lot of teasers leading up to the event, and, normally we'd be recording last night, and then we'd be talking about all the skins without actually seeing them in-game, but, it's Thursday night, the event is out, we've actually gotten to take a closer look at all of the skins, and all of these skins seem to be based, not all of them, a majority of them, are based off of a 14th century historical Chinese novel, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. So, who all is getting a new skin with this event? We got a new Reaper skin, we got Hanzo, Reinhardt, Torbjorn, Zenyatta, Tracer, Orisa, and Brigitte. Now, I would be more than happy to butcher all of the names, because they're all Chinese. But I'm not going to do that. But I want to get your initial thoughts on, just the lay of all of them. Do you have a favorite? Are there any skins that you're just not that fond of that maybe, don't stick out as much as some of the others?
Well, there's 3 skins I actually really liked, and it was the first 3 you mentioned. The Reaper skin is actually really cool. I do like the Hanzo skin, the wise old Chinese man skin. And then the Reinhardt skin, because it looks like he's straight out of the movie Mulan. But the Torbjorn one, that one kind of sucked. I don't like the Zenyatta one personally. The Tracer one, I don't know, feels racist. I don't know. Like, it's just, you have this tiny white girl dressed up like this, and it just doesn't look right to me. And then the Orisa one is just, they didn't like do a reveal for Orisa, but like, the best way I can describe it over podcast form is if you've ever seen one of those Chinese dragons during a parade
Hmm.
that they do, that's kind of what they were going for with Orisa, and none of those really intrigue me. But if I had to pick one favorite one, I really like the Hanzo one.
Okay.
And I'm partial because I've been playing a lot of Hanzo on my DPS account. So maybe have to get this skinned.
So what you're saying is this is based off of biasness.
Oh yeah, no. That's what like 99% of my decisions are based off of.
You know, I had to say, like, I really like the Reaper one, and it couldn't come at a worse time, because, everyone's, like, blown up about how overpowered Reaper is now, even though he still has all of the same issues. But I really do like that black and red outfit, and the mask is really slick. And, when you kind of, like, go through over all of them, Hanzo, he's the gray beard, he's rocking that older Chinese man type of look, rocking the Chinese armor. The Guan Yu Reinhardt is really good. I think I like that one the most because I like the way that the heavy Chinese armor looks, and it's a different aesthetic look for Reinhardt too because he is donning that black beard. And I have to say the Torbjorn one I'm not really fond of. To me, like that's probably the weakest one out of the lot. And the problem is, he looks too much like a pirate. I don't know, like,
Exactly.
what he's supposed to be, because he has an eye patch, and it looks too similar to, like, a Greybeard type skin. I don't know. It's very off-putting, and I don't know where to place it.
Yeah, it looks too much like his pirate skin that he has now. Like, I don't know.
And
I don't know if that's a legendary one though.
That could be. And I'm not a huge fan of the Zenyatta skin. I do kind of like I like the more like drawn on look of the facial hair. It's very like paper thin. But the whole like martial arts robe looks so weird to me on Zenyatta because he's floating around. What's he gonna do? Just hit you with like 8 palms or something? I don't know.
Yeah, no one should have like those kind of robes that doesn't walk. Like, no. Just it didn't do well on that one.
So what was interesting about this is, you brought up the Orisa one, and they didn't really showcase it ahead of time. I know that for Korea, they did an Overwatch developers update, and that's when we got our first look at the Tracer, Orisa, and Brigitte skin. And really, like, those three aren't really, like, huge standouts, so I wasn't, like, too upset about not getting a better look at them ahead of time. But as per usual with the new event, we also got some new voice lines, we got some new sprays, we got a couple new emotes. I remember one of them was like a Soldier 76 one, where he's like playing like a hand drum. I don't know what the proper terminology is for it. But I believe it was Lucio got a new highlight intro where he's playing drums as well. And there was one other emote. I cannot remember it off the top of my head for the life of me, though.
Not Roadhog.
It's not Roadhog. A Roadhog has nothing. It might have like a voice line and maybe a spray.
I feel everyone has that, but yeah.
Exactly.
There's more emotes than that, I thought.
I don't know, there's usually like 2 or 3.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. It will come back to me.
Alright, well, let's go ahead. Let's move on, and let's talk about some new merchandise that was revealed. Of course, it comes from our good friends over at Funko Pop, so more Overwatch heroes are getting the Funko treatment. So, in this next lineup, we have Wrecking Ball, Bastion, Pharah, Reaper, Brigitte, Moira, and D.Va joining the Funko Pop line. So Wrecking Ball and Bastion will both be the larger scale Funko Pops. Those are the ones that are 6 inches tall. And it's important to note, Diva already has a Funko Pop, but that's for her mech unit. That was one of the larger scale ones. So this one is actually like the more traditional size Funko, and it does not include her mecha. So it's baby Diva. So I have to say, like, the Wrecking Ball one by far is my favorite out of all of these. I like that we actually see Hammond bursting out of the top of the mech. I thought it was a really nice touch. And all of these were unveiled at the London Toy Fair and are coming soon, but we have not heard anything about any sort of release date. And then on top of this, they also unveiled some new Funko keychains. So you can pick up an Orisa, Widowmaker, McCree, and Hanzo one. So all those will be joining that lineup. And, you know, again, I'm sure Spider is going to be first in line to get all of these because he collects them. I don't know about the keychains, but the normal Funko Pops, absolutely. And Funko Pops usually run anywhere from like 10, 15 bucks. So are there any ones out of these that you were looking at getting? Because you and I are both in the same boat when it comes to Funko Pops.
I mean, I'm with you on the Hammond one. I really like the Hammond one. I think that is probably one of the most unique ones. And I actually really like the Moira one. Just because it just looks unique. I don't like the Diva, Farah, Bastion. Reaper's okay, Baguette's okay. But if I was to get any of these, I'd say Hammond and Moira. And, I mean... I really want to start collecting Funko Pops. But then I turn into Spider. And then I have to have all of them. And then that becomes an issue. And I don't know if I want to, like, dive into that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be like, okay, now I need to go back and buy all the 40 other Funko Pops I didn't have before this. So...
Then you're gonna be like $500 in a hole.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna be like, well, I also really love Star Wars, and then all hell's gonna break loose because there's a million times more of those than Overwatch ones. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, ooh, I really like playing Destiny too. Let's go get those. Dang it! Next thing you know, I'm a hoarder with a bedroom full of Funko Pops. I've thought this through.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, they're actually really cool. I'll be interested to see how and where you can get them, if any of them are going to be exclusive or anything like that.
Yeah, for me, if I'm going to buy any of the two, it'll most definitely be Wrecking Ball 1. More than likely to be Farah for my second choice, just because that is kind of my DPS main out of the lot, so there's definitely some a little bit of bias there. So something that we didn't mention about the event is also the fact that it also brought all of the balance changes that were on the PTR, because the 1.32 PTR did conclude last night. So we got the armor changes, we got the buff to Reapers, lifesteal, which is still not going to make him super viable at anything over gold. Maybe plat. Yeah. And, you know, we also had the rally change.
And quick question, was anything changed?
No.
Oh, weird.
Imagine that.
I think I could have guessed that.
Yeah, it's funny, because, you know, they do these PTR tests, and then it just gets patched straight to live, without any additional changes.
I mean, maybe more people... I mean, I've said it before, maybe more people need to spend time on there, but they also did do a whole, like, Pro Pug stream on the PTR. And, yeah, that's probably the most exposure the PTR has ever had. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, the next PTR update probably is going to be a pretty interesting one.
Potentially. Maybe that will finally be the death nail of goats at that point.
Well, no, I'm actually thinking the next actual big PTR update is going to bring the new hero.
Could be.
Because we're getting to that. We're getting to that, you know, stage where, you know, the last one came out in beginning of November. Mm-hmm. So, you know, February, March is when we're going to be getting a new one. So, fingers crossed.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and let's see what the community is talking about. So first up, we got some Overwatch League news that's brought a little bit of spice over on Twitter. So the Florida Mayhem have made some coaching changes, and This is pretty big because as of tonight's recording, we are only 20 days away from the start of the Overwatch League Season 2. So 1 month out for the new season, and Florida Mayhem make a coaching staff. So Mayhem have parted ways with Coach Ryder. And then they have promoted Mayhem Academy coach Promise to replace Ryder on the Mayhem coaching staff. So looking back, Ryder had first joined the Mayhem as an assistant coach following Stage 1. Then not long after he came onto the team, Mineral had to take some time off due to some health reasons, and Ryder basically had to handle coaching duties alone at that point. So Mayhem were kind of like in this opposition where they were extremely short-staffed. We've talked about this quite a bit, and they did not have an interpreter until near the end of the league schedule. Now, this is according to Ryder, so it's kind of hard to say. Normally the truth lies somewhere in the middle, and we'll talk about some other comments that were made from former players. But based off of what Ryder was mentioning in his Twitter post, it seemed like not having an interpreter caused conflict on the team, and a lot of that was just due to the fact that Ryder had unskilled English. That I could see how that could definitely cause a rift, especially with all the non-Korean players that were on the roster, because they were all from EU and NA. So Mayhem would go on to go 6-24 with Ryder on the coaching staff, and they finished overall 7-33. And then looking at Promise, he joined Mayhem Academy ahead of Contenders North America Season 3. Again, this was last year, so the one I just wrapped up not too long ago. And this is a team who went 1-4. That one win came against Kungarna, who did not win a single game. They failed to secure a playoff berth. And, despite the move, Mayhem are still a very short-staffed team when you compare them to a lot of the league going into Season 2. They have a head coach, they have an assistant coach, as well as a performance coach. But you sprinkle in the fact that, Swoosh, who was at one point the Mayhem main tank before they picked up Awesome Guy, he basically went on to Twitter, and it's important to note, Swoosh was on Mayhem. Now he's currently coaching the Contenders EU Champions Team Giganti. And Swoosh said that the decision to let Ryder go is one of the best decisions Mayhem has done. He was lazy, arrogant, and didn't care for his players. Traits that a coach shouldn't have. The one thing I've learned from Ryder is how to not coach. So, some little bit of spice. And, we've heard both from Ryder, from Swoosh. So what do you feel like exactly happened behind the scenes when it comes to the Mayhem?
Well, for instance, Swoosh, he may not have been the best coach, but Swoosh is just hurt because he got benched. Because he was honestly one of the weakest links on the team last year. And when you're one of the weakest links on an already crap team, and you get benched halfway through the season for Awesome Guy, he's already bitter at the organization for getting benched and then cut. He was given a shot, he sucked. He's not even a pro player anymore. The organization he was on realized he was not worthy of being a professional Overwatch player. And he's taking it out on his old team that benched him and then cut him. And, is there probably some truth to it? Sure. But, if you believe the whole Ryder situation of there was no translator or anything like that, how could he know? How does Swoosh know, he's arrogant, he's cocky, he's all these things when there's no communication because they can't actually communicate with each other. Now, he was able to communicate, obviously, with Saya Player and Awesome Guy, but taking what Ryder said and taking what Swoosh said and looking at the big picture, this is an organizational meltdown. To fire a coach 20 days before the season starts out of nowhere is insane. The organization, the owner probably just had a bad day and got pissed off about the coaching situation and fired him. It's just, you don't see good organizations this kind of shit happening. Like, you don't have ex players coming back saying how horrible this coach is. You don't have coaches getting fired 20 days before the season starts. You actually have a full staff of coaches. Like, all of this. You don't say, I'm not going to go all Korean and then be like, see, we have one American player. We're not an all Korean team. You have a two-way American player and then a bus driver and then Korean players. You're a Korean team. Like, it's a piss poor run organization. And I think that was pretty evident last year with all the changes. Like, I don't think there's been one staff that has gone through as many changes from start to finish than the Florida Mayhem have. And I started off as a big Florida Mayhem fan, but I can't support them because their organization is worse than the Boston Uprising almost at this point. And that's saying something. And Boston Uprising is a horrible organization, but Florida Mayhem might just be worse. So I don't know. Who do you lean more towards being truthful, Ryder or Swoosh?
I feel like the disconnect here solely relies on the fact that there was not a way for there to be good communication. So if Ryder really didn't have a way to talk to the players, I definitely see how that could be seen as a lack of connection. But I feel like Swoosh is... I don't know if he's just throwing shade just to throw shade, or he's just trying to shine a light on how dire the situation was at that given time. So I'm assuming it's somewhere in the middle. I could see, yes, he's probably a little bit sour that he lost his spot to Awesome Guy, who... Awesome Guy himself really wasn't that good of a player either. But he's remaining on the team. But if... I feel like Ryder having to be in that position and not having anyone else that he can rely on was going to shine a bad light on Mayhem one way or another. So in that situation, I feel like Ryder, he did what he could, but at the end of the day, it was never going to be enough because you can only work with what you're given, and if you're not given anything, you're just doomed to fail at that point. So I don't think the record coincides with Ryder's coaching abilities. He might have been more of a strategic coach, and maybe he just didn't spend enough one-on-one time with the players, but if he wasn't able to talk to the players, he would have no way to form that connection. So it was just a complete mess. And Promote and Promise, Mayhem Academy is one of these teams that just seems like they're not here to win. So I don't know if I could really say okay, a lot of this is going to be on Promise. But it's very hard to have faith in an organization that kind of from top to bottom just hasn't really stood out in a good way. So I don't know what to expect from the Mayhem, but if they're releasing a coach this close to the season, things had to have been in a pretty bad spot for them to actually make that move.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest telltale of all this where it's on the organization. So last year, Florida Mayhem, they're a Swedish team. All the players were Swedish. It's just the way they were. Like Tavik and Swoosh and all them. They had a Korean coach. All right, so this year they bring in a team. Who's their coach? Swedish coach. So they had a Korean coach for the Swedish team and then a Swedish coach for the Korean team. It's just, all of that stuff is just ass backwards. Use your brain. Come on, people. And we all thought, when they brought in Bare Hands from, I think Bare Hands was New York, that things would turn around, and it just, I guess it was just, not meant to be. Maybe season 3. I don't know. So
watch, next year they're gonna have an all NA team. They're gonna mix it up again.
and then they're gonna have a Brazilian coach.
Yeah, why not?
It's just what's gonna happen.
I can see it. I can definitely see it. Well, anyways, moving on, we also have an update in regards to Open Division, specifically in Korea. So, we've gotten word that there will not be official streaming and casting for the upcoming season of Open Division Korea. So, Open Division playoffs will be online only. So, Trials and Open Division playoffs were both played in LAN in Korea. And, they're really the only region that kind of has an infrastructure in place for the entirety of Path to Pro, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's striking to me is when we look back at it, in the past, when it comes to the Korean scene, even in Open Division playoffs were drawing more viewership than some of the other contenders or regions, so for them not to be able to compete at LAN at that level, and then also not be streamed, is actually a pretty big blow to the Korean scene. That being said, though, regardless of if it's being streamed or not, basically across the region, as time has moved on, we've seen more and more interest in the Path to Pro. Now, some regions are only playing for Blizzard bucks, and that's kind of impacted the interest a little bit. We've seen lack of LAN play in some areas, and, representation is still, not in a terrible spot per se. But what do you feel like they would make this change despite Korea actually having all that infrastructure where, since everyone is so close in proximity in Korea, it's not like they really have that many transportation issues getting to an event?
I mean, so the crazy conspiracy theory wants to say Blizzard was kind of getting worried about the tier 3 scene in, the Open Division in Korea. Like you said, being more popular than some of the actual tier 3 in Korea is more popular than contenders in South America or Australia or the Pacific, probably China. It's not bigger than EU and NA, obviously, but it was just getting bigger and bigger. And then the other thing it could possibly be is they're starting to see what Runaways did, where they're not seeing the true benefit of the Open Division, when the best team in Korea basically was like, all right, we're just going to have a massive tryout with as many people as possible, Open Division or not. And then they're going to sign a whole new team of nobody anybody knows. And I don't even think the majority of them were from Open Division in Korea, but they go on and win. And it's just they may not see the benefit of introducing these Open Division players to the public and not having it not being able to follow their progression almost, because they're not guaranteed to do anything. Now, whether that means no LANs, I think they should still do the LAN party, the LAN events, because they can be good openers for contenders. When you think of a boxing match or something like that, you have the main fight, which would be the contenders matches, and then you have the undercard, which could be the Open Division. Does that necessarily have to be streamed? No, it doesn't. It can just be there for the people who are live at the event, or allow a third party like broadcast.gg to broadcast these Open Division tournaments. Do stuff like that. But this was, there's no good reason for them not to have this. So there's something, I don't want to call it sinister afoot, but something's wonky about all this. There's no reason for them to not do this, other than the fact that we all know OWL hates the tier 2 and tier 3 scene.
Well, with or without LAN being prominent in the tier 3 scene for Korea, this is not going to bridge the gap between the tier 3 Korean scene compared to literally every other region at that level, and in some cases, the next level up. So, I don't feel like this is going to impact the interest in Korea in regards to competitive Overwatch, because it is still going to be the most prominent region out of all of them. But I don't think that's going to mean that, hey, maybe we're going to get a little bit less Korean talent on the up and up when it comes to move into the Overwatch League. And I just want to, quick side note, I'm going to add a rule to our drinking game where anytime you call runaway or runaways, you have to take a shot. Because
No.
You do it literally,
No.
literally every time.
Okay, so the thing is there's more than one runaway team. Thus, pluralize it.
That's not how that works.
It's the runaways. So I could be talking about Vancouver, or I could be talking about the current runaway team.
No.
Technicality for the win.
If you're going to do that, we might as well just label it the original runaway team, and then the new runaway team.
Yeah, but then what do you do next year when Runaway gets signed by another expansion team, and then they're on their third team?
They only have two players that are eligible.
Technicalities.
It'd be different if, like, 5 or 6 of the players would be able to get signed right away to the Overwatch League, but that is not the case. But anyways, we are here to talk about the Path to Pro and the Overwatch League, so let's shine a little bit of light on some of the regions that just wrapped up. So we just had contenders South America and Australia. And, we had the semifinals, we had the finals for Australia, we also had just the finals for South America. So I don't know, why don't you quickly go over the results, and then we'll jump into the grand finals.
All right. Well, I'll go through the Australia semi. Sydney Drop Bears defeated Heist 3-0. And in the other semis, Order defeated Atletico 3-0. And then in the Australian finals, Sydney Drop Bears defeated Order 4-1. And then in the South American finals, LFT Owl defeated Base Tryhards 4-2. And I would consider this a massive upset. So yeah, no, it was some great matches that went on. 9 hours of South America finals and Australian matches, but it was good to watch. There was some good goats play. There was a lot of goats.
I am shocked.
A lot of goats.
That hasn't been true about literally every other region in Contenders in Season 3, 2018.
Yeah, I saw a lot of Reinhardts.
You also saw a lot of Winston on defense, too, though.
Yeah, you were seeing a lot of Winston, but, and I think I'll talk more about this when we talk about the Drop Bears.
Mm-hmm.
They went to Winston a lot. When they were playing, because in my mind they're not the best goats team, but you can get punished very easily for running Winston goats,
right?
Because you do not, if you're going Winston goats and you're going up against a traditional goats team with a Reinhardt, you have nothing to protect the Earthshatter Diva Bomb combo, which does not require any form of Zarya, Grav. It's just one of those combos that works so well, and if you can't protect it without a insanely well-timed Winston bubble, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass at some point. So, I don't know, which one do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about Australia? Do you want to talk about South America first?
Let's touch up on South America, because this is the top lane of the Giants in regards to the South American scene. So, let's look back a little bit. You had Base Tryhards, who at one point were Brazil Gaming House. This is the team in South America that literally ran through the entire region time and time again. This was the first loss in about a year. There were a lot of situations where they just either didn't lose a map in the series, or they would only lose one map. And we've seen them compete in the World Cup as Team Brazil. And, someone that was on LFT OWL was also on Team Brazil, which I'm sure you'll be saying his name a lot, as you mentioned earlier. But Base Tryhards have been a tier above everyone else in South America. So for them to lose at this point, despite, some of their players moving up to contenders and, making that next step in different regions, it's still a huge upset. But kind of like going in, like we heard from a lot of the South American teams, they were pretty split on this series. LFT OWL proved to be the better GOATS team, but that being said, like, if you're looking for mere GOATS compositions at its peak, this is going to be the finals that you're definitely going to want to check out. So, if you want any better indication, just look at the start that we had on Busan, because it felt like literally an eternity passed by before the first kill even happened. It was just like this war of attrition really early on, and eventually Ole manages to burst down Neil.
Ole!
Yeah, from base tryhards, and that opened up the first cap. But man, time and time again, it seemed like there was just so much sustain on both sides, and if you got one pick, you were guaranteed to get the flip, and there was a lot of back and forth, at least on Busan, because this one did go 3 rounds. And what I liked about this is, there were times where, like, LFT would, like, try to get the upper hand by, like, maybe, like, preemptively throwing in the self-destruct. And, sometimes that helped, sometimes it didn't. There were times where it would force out that Transcendence really early on in the fight. That's great. But, there were also times where they ended up, falling behind in the ult economy. But,
yeah.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, like, time and time again.
Real bad at this.
Yeah. It felt like, to me, the biggest difference between these two teams was the Zarya play, and that was one of the biggest indications of how everything was basically going to unfold.
Yeah, on this first map, on Busan, I think the Zarya play, one of those things where it stuck out very heavily. Like Liko on, and I may be saying the names completely wrong, but Liko on Zarya for base tryhards, he wasn't sustaining, he wasn't getting his ult fast enough. He just, Muriz on LFT, he was getting some insane Zarya ults. High power, staying alive. I remember this one time on the first map, right at the beginning, Muriz had this insane Zarya grab, and there was no follow-up to it because, like you said earlier, there was so much great back and forth goats on goats action, and nobody was dying, but everyone was pumping out massive damage. And that was the first time when I saw that Muriz hit that Zarya ult, and nothing happened from it. Like, I was like, oh god, this is going to be a long fight. And every map that they did, basically, except maybe Dorado, was, a super long fight. The one thing on Busan that actually stuck out to me was, and if you go back and watch it, is the D.Va positioning. Whether it was Honorado or Aegon, they were always positioning, and those two were fighting each other for the high ground. Because every map you went to, with whether it's Busan, Hollywood, Horizon, Dorado, there are certain tactical advantages for the high ground. And whichever D.Va controlled that high ground was winning, because there was nothing the other team could do. So, I mean, on this one, Aegon was really on the first map specifically, was on top of the point, just raining down hell. Like, just going to town. Ole was going to town, so Ole, stuff like that. But the D.Va positioning was what set this map apart for me. Further maps, there's one particular character that I'll get into that I think actually lost the entire series for base tryhards, but he did not do it on Busan. He did it on, the following 5 maps. So, but yeah, that was Busan. Busan was a very good one. Very close.
Yeah, and when we went to the downtown spot, that's when we got to see a little bit of non-GOATs compositions coming out, because base tryhards ended up running Widowmaker and Pharah. So, there was a lot of trying to stay out of line of sight from the Widow doesn't always work out. But Pizza Lover just opens up finding 2 picks on a support line, and that really opened up the door for base tryhards to get that first capture. And, we mentioned the Zarya play, and something that I noticed was, yes, Mirrors was definitely the better of the 2 Zaryas, but it felt like as a team, LFT OWL played better against the Zarya than base tryhards did, because every time that Liko would actually have his grab, he would quickly get bursts down, or whenever he was close to earning that grab, he would be the first to fall in these fights. So the pressure that was on Liko was a lot more prominent than what was put onto Mirrors, and there were a lot of times where Mirrors would clutch things out for LFT OWL. So it's crazy to see just how much of a drastic shift there can be at just one position in these GOATs v GOATs compositions that really tilts the scale in a lot of these team fights, because time and time again you would see Mirrors pop in, drop the grab. There were times where he wouldn't even have it and he'd clean up, getting 3-4 kills at a time, and that just was prominent throughout the entire series. But it's important to note, we went to Hollywood in map 2, and base tryhards lost that map as well, and they've never in any series gone down 0-2, so that was another huge deal, as well, as someone that had dominated that scene for well over a year and a half at that point, because this is a team that hadn't lost really in 2018 outside of, I want to say it was Isurus Gaming was the last team that beat base tryhards before this series.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about, on Hollywood, when LFT was on defense on point A the first time, they, that was the first time when you're watching it that you're just all right, this team as a whole now is starting to get confident against, when you go up against base tryhard, you're just going to be okay, let's try and maybe take a map and not embarrass ourselves. Let's put up a good fight. And I think Hollywood was the map where they're just no, we can win this. And there was a point where they wiped them, and they pushed straight up to the spawn doors of base tryhard. Aegon and I believe Pizza Lover were up in front of the doors, shooting into the doors while they were trying to regroup. And they're just no, we're not giving you an inch. We're not letting you get out here. We're not scared of you. And I think that moment right there was when things switched around. And that's when, LFT really kind of just took the wheel. And this was the map where, and I'll say this, who I think actually lost the match for base tryhard was Neil. I was not impressed with Neil on any map, period, after Busan. I think he cost his team with bad positioning, bad charges, bad shield placement, just overall sloppy play from Neil. He was the dog man of this group. He was the one that was dying first every single time. And if he's the first one to die as the shield tank, GOATS does not work. And he just was not playing up to snuff. He was just getting dominated. And it was pretty prevalent on a Hollywood when LFT won that, Neil was the weakness in this group.
Yeah, Neil's always had a more aggressive playstyle to the Reinhardt, which at times is really good for applying shield pressure, but when you do go for that charge, it just leaves you so susceptible, and when you're playing what was a better team in GOATs mirror compositions time and time again, because both of these teams were running Zen GOATs, as soon as you go for that charge, you better finalize that kill, otherwise, if that team is able to sustain, you're going to get punished immediately, and that definitely happened in more than one occasion. But I do want to note, on Hollywood specifically, Olay was really the one at the end of both sides that was popping off. He was finding the frags. I remember when LFT were on their attack, BTH were on the back foot, and you see Honorato come in and ends up getting 2.5 with his self-destruct, And then Ole just answers right back. He finds consecutive frags, and one of those was on Neil, so BTH did not have a shield tank at that point, and LFT was just able to cruise right to the rectangle to take that 2-0 lead, which would lead us to the assault map, everyone's favorite game mode, which would be played on Horizon Lunar Colony, and lo and behold, Ed, we would go more than one round.
What?
Right?
No.
So, something that I will note about LFT OWL is the fact that when this team is on the defense, they are not a team that likes to, stand back. They are going to play at the doorway. They're going to make you work for basically every inch. And Neil basically, he came in, he actually dropped Muriz pretty early on. LFT at that point had to basically fall back to the point. And then Neil, he presses W, he holds M1, that's what he's good at. And Honorato was there, finding 2 frags. And we saw Muriz try to, switch things up. He was looking to re-engage with the Doomfist, but it was too little, too late, because at that point, BTH only needed 1 tick in that tiebreak round to take the map. And that's finally where, maybe some of the momentum was about to shift at that point. But all in all, we saw a lot of late staggers on Agon, on LFT's time bank attack, which was, not good. And we just saw Liko basically just lock him up off the point with the Graviton Surge, so they weren't able to really secure any sort of progress on that first point in their time bank round.
Yeah, no, there wasn't. And another thing stuck out to me on this was on the Baguette. Was getting super aggressive. Like LFT is not a team that is gonna. We're gonna go to them, not let them come to us type of team. And I think they took that a little bit too far in this map. And I think Leviathan on the Baguette was getting a little too far forward, trying to get the cheeky plays, and it was costing them. And I think that allowed kind of a little bit of a snowball to occur, and it really just didn't help the team. And you saw just the way this map was playing out. Base Tryhards was just the better team on this map. From that hold on point A the second time, of course, after the 2-2, that hold on point A, it's just no. That team was just destined to win Horizon Lunar Colony.
And then we went on to Dorado. Now, Dorado was an interesting map. So LFT were on the attack first in what was arguably the most flawless attack I have ever seen in any competitive Overwatch tournament match, let alone in the grand finals. So LFT basically, they bait the drop down. Neil gets pressure down really early on, and more kills are coming through for LFT. And what's great about this is they're not having to invest anything before they get to that first objective. So BTH, they respawn, they look to defend the high ground. LFT, they rally up. Liko gets caught by Agon. Neil ends up getting counterpinned, and then the snowball just keeps happening. We see LFT take another fight, and they're not having to invest. It's just, maybe they use one ult, but no matter what, they're still going to have the ult advantage in this fight. We see Liko come in with the grab to, try to stabilize the defense for base tryhards, but Ole is there to pop the Transcendence to sustain the group, and then the snowball just continues. At one point, Neil and Carlero get staggered pretty bad, which allows LFT to continue to build up on that pressure, and we see Neil fall. So again,
I'm seeing a
time and time again
here. Yep.
Yeah, and of course, to end out the round, we see the grab bomb combination netting a 3-kill for LFT, and they complete the map with 3:09 left in the time bank, which is for Dorado absolutely absurd.
Yeah, the big thing that stuck out to me is, and it's something I can actually see them possibly changing in the future, because all they would need to do is create an exit. Is the spawn after LFT took point B? Like they did a team kill, and then they took it to point B, but Neil and what was it? It was Neil and Wings who came out of that spawn point, right in front of where point B is. So it's like they had to run towards the attacking team by themselves, and then turn around and try and go back to join their team. And it's just like that, and they took out both because and create this massive stagger. It's just one of those things where if your team, like, it's that where they spawn after point B, if they are dead but they haven't quite captured it, that awkward moment is such a bad location that there's nothing that you can do. Like, you're spawning in front of the team attacking you, and they just captured the point. Like, you're going to get a horrible stagger on that map no matter what, if that's the case. And I don't really find that fair. Just because it happened to be within a 5-second window of when they died to win, or I don't know the exact time, but when they died to when they captured the point, you're going to die again. Like, it's guaranteed. You're going to die again. So, like, that seemed a little bit harsh, but that point right there is just like, yeah, nothing's stopping LFT from taking this point, because now they're coming around the corner for the last turn, and they just staggered the Lucio and the Reinhardt. Like, there's not much you can do to come back from it. And it's not that long from point B to point C on Dorado either. So it was a tricky situation, but like you said, it was probably one of the most flawless attacks I've ever seen.
Well, with that being said, we did see base tryhards complete their attack. Not as flawless. They ended up having 1 minute in the time bank. So, again, this would go to extra rounds, and BTH were on the time bank attack first, and we saw LFT OWL looking to defend the underpass. They weren't going to give as much free space as base tryhards did. So Fasty ends up pushing forward, and Neil, again, is the first to fall for base tryhards. And, they promptly reset, so they would have time for one more engage. And Mirrors would end up, landing the right clicks from the high ground. He would back out as overtime would start to kick in. He throws the grab in. Fasty follows up with the shatter. And overtime just runs out, which made for a pretty easy win condition for LFT OWL. So on their attack, at first they're like, okay, maybe we'll try to bring out the Hanzo, maybe a little bit of pulled pork. Something that had a lot of burst potential to get an easy first kill to lead to, a quick take. And what happens? They just swap to goats. Toying with our emotions. So BTH, they look to take the drop-down defense again, which did not work on their first offense at all. Neil ends up missing the pin, so again, positioning not the best at times. And LFT are able to keep everyone up. They have the sustain. Liko ends up earning the first grab, but the follow-up is not there for base tryhards. We see Fasty toss in a Fire Strike, which ends up finding 2, which opens up a lot of free space for LFT. And he just comes in with the Shatter, and base tryhards are just unable to touch the payload. So at this point, it's looking pretty good for LFT OWL, which would lead us into the next map, which was a control in Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, Lijiang Tower. I don't want to say base. All right, what's going on here? We're down 3-1. What are we doing here? We need to win this, because to me, looking at it, base tryhards was gonna win this from the get-go. They were just running as a complete team. Neil didn't die as much as normal. But they just kind of came in and just kind of dominated this. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward goats, goats v goats, all that fun jazz. But yeah, Base Tryhard just kind of came out on top and dominated like everyone thought they'd do for the first 5 maps.
I remember at one point, I believe this was in the second round, Base Tryhards were basically on the back foot, and we saw Honorato throw his self-destruct in, and it ends up netting a 3k, which would allow the point flip, and this was at 39%. It's just one of those really clutch moments from a D.Va player that have been coming more and more prominent with just the setups that we see from Brigitte compositions. And I remember at one point, too, this is one of those ones that, went 199. And luckily for Base Tryhards, they were coming in with the big 6 near the end for that final approach, which, of course, is huge. And they were able to win the shield battle up front. Fasty's shield was broken, and Neil is there to take the advantage. We see the grab come in from Mirrors, but BTH still end up coming out ahead in that fight, and it's Calero being the one, not Ole in this case, fragging out on the Zenyatta to finalize the kills, as, they would extend the series to another map, which would lead us to Numbani and another multi-attack map.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a lengthy series across the board. So what did you get out of Numbani?
Well, I mean, out of Numbani, they both went to... I was seeing a lot of really good D.Va play on this point. A lot of sloppy Reinhardt play, and not just from Neil, but from Fasty as well. It was just they were trying to go... Numbani sets up Reinhardt's... It's very odd. They set up Reinhardt's on Numbani to make all these big plays, because you can get a lot of good charges in with the way the map zigs and zags, where you don't have to worry about going long distances, and they're kind of trapped in small. You're going to charge, and you're going to charge into a building right in front of you, and you're either going to kill them or you are going to survive. And they were both going in. They were hitting their charges, all that fun stuff. I believe it was LFT Owl on point B. I think it was Anog. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I may be completely wrong. But I think he had a 5K on Aegon on that one that was set up by Fasty. It was just a thing of beauty. So, Mirrors hit Zarya, and then, Aegon hit his, D.Va ult. But in the meantime, because the Neil shield was up, Fasty charged and took out just the Reinhardt.
Mm-hmm.
And then so the D.Va bomb took out 5 of them, and then Fasty took out Neil with the charge, and it was just that was just a thing of beauty. That's charging in and hitting the Zenyatta, hitting Transcendence, going into Zarya ult. It was a thing of beauty. They didn't let their foot off the gas, LFTL. They had a much better offense going in, because I don't know the exact time being difference that they had, but LFT looked like they kind of breezed towards the end, whereas Base Tryhards had to put in a little bit of effort from point B to C. LFT put up a little bit of a better defense, was holding them off a little bit more.
Yeah, it was a 22-second differential in favor of LFT on that map.
Yeah, and then what happens is the one thing I did not like is they went on defense. I think it was, on defense. They both went Winston goats instead of Reinhardt goats. I did not like that, just because, well, Neil, not my favorite, but you had, on the second, after the map was originally completed, when they both had their offensive attacks, you are basically saying, we're going to go with Winston and ignore and hope that the other Reinhardt does not get their ultimate in time. And then when it came down to, LFT had stopped base tryhards, but LFT still had to take the point. That was the difference maker, I think, because that map went on forever. Like, Neil got a couple of his Winston off, I think, in that final, again, it went on forever, but, Fasty had his ultimate, his Shatter up twice in that, and he was able to get it off without any interruption from any shield tank. And his Shatter actually is kind of what caused LFT to take this map in when he shattered, and I forgot who had switched over to the Hamster, but the Hamster was on point, and it only caught Hamster on point. And they basically were able to nuke down Hamster, and then that was a domino effect from there on out, because you don't have that Reinhardt to block the counter shatter. It just, I get wanting to have the Winston. There's so much high ground on Numbani, but when you're goats v goats, it does not matter who has high ground, because the only people who can get high ground really are D.Va, and then you have your Zenyatta's in certain locations. So I don't know. I think it was just bad goats calls on both sides. It just worked out for LFT more because they had more time in the bank.
Well, I mean,
and base tryhard had Neil.
Yeah, at one point, I got into self-destruct, and that really basically scatterbrained base tryhards. And we did see BTH come in with some stall picks. They brought out the Wrecking Ball. Liko actually swapped over to Doomfist, but at that point it was already too little too late. Mirez was high energy. No one was really pressuring him. He would bubble his main tank. He just cuts through Neil, and he throws out the grab, which ends up keeping BTA off of the point. And then that was the closing moment of the grand finals. So LFT OWL took it 4-2. Base tryhards, really the titans of South America, were toppled. And, is this a changing of the guard moment in South America? I'm tentative to say yes, primarily because of the meta. LFT OWL were without question the better GOATS team. But DPS wise, it's hard to say, but I have to say, time and time again, base tryhards would just lose the frontline battle. LFT OWL had better sustain. And in GOATS, if you're able to sustain, and, if your main tank can, keep his shield up, block the shatters. And I'd say, one thing I will note about both sides, when it comes to the Reinhardt play at least, there were not a lot of Earth Shatters that were actually landing. There were a lot of blocks. But at the end of the day, Mirez was just a huge playmaker for LFT OWL. Really not under that much pressure. He was able to keep his main tank up a lot better than the other side, and Fasty really just outplayed Neil throughout this series. So all in all, this was a huge win for LFT OWL, and if they're able to do what base tryhards has been able to done in a different sort of meta, then, it's safe to say, I feel like this team... it might be a little bit too early on to kind of peg them as one of the best teams out there, but it makes me very excited knowing that we're going to get more interregional competition here very soon. So I really want to see how this team is going to fare after we've already kind of seen what base tryhards has attempted to do against some of the other regions in the World Cup and things like that.
One thing I do want to point out that I did find, all the guys from the base tryhards were spamming the Boston Uprising spray. And I'm like, why the hell? And then I'm like, oh yeah, because the Boston Uprising are legit the only team to sign South American players. They're oh yeah.
And Australia.
But
the drop bears weren't doing it, so
yeah, drop bears weren't, but they were just showing support for the one OWL team that was actually paying attention and signing, South American players. I found that kind of funny. Like, I don't want to say it's a changing of the guard because it's not. It's just one of those things where, base tryhards lost some of their best players to Overwatch League. So when you lose your best players, what happens? The rest of the competition creeps up on you because you lost some of your best talents. And this was based on the current meta, which is GOATs. And I don't think from watching these two matches, like obviously base tryhards was not the best GOATs team out of the two. That was proven. In Australia, and I talked to you about this beforehand, the Sydney Drop Bears are not the best GOATs team in Australia. There's one big difference that I'll get into when we start talking about that. But like, I don't even think Sydney Drop Bears are the best GOATs team in Australia based on the grand finals. Like, it's just it's game. The meta right now is game. A lot of the teams out there right now.
So for Australia, we saw Order going up against Sydney Drop Bears. Drop Bears were back-to-back champions in that region. And it's also important to note, Order has some former Drop Bears on their roster. So we would open up on Ilios. And, man, Control! Just so much back and forth. Now, one of the biggest standouts to me, if I was going to say an individual player who had the biggest impact in this series on either side, I would have to say Shoyo. Because the amount of Graviton surges he ate vastly outweighed the amount of Graviton surges that actually landed. Like, it just felt like it was an endless abyss.
Yes. When Shoyo was on D.Va, Shoyo was standout. That's one of the problems I had with this play. So Shoyo was on D.Va when they ran traditional GOATs, but they did not spend a lot of time playing traditional GOATs. So what they would be doing is CKM would be on Doomfist, would be on Mei, and Shoyo would be on Baguette. And Baguette, it was not his best character. Mm-hmm. And then if they wanted to switch to GOATs, then they'd have to do a double switch. Like CKM would switch over to Baguette, and then Shoyo would switch over to D.Va, and you didn't see it that often. So Shoyo, when he was on D.Va, was very much a standout player and was eating things left and right. But a lot of the time, Shoyo wasn't on D.Va. Shoyo was on Baguette, and CKM was doing anti-GOATs comps, basically. So, I don't know. It's just every map I saw with, Sydney Drop Bears they were running unconventional GOATs. It's whether, CKM was on Doomfist, like I said, or if they were running Snotes, which is an actual thing. Snotes. So Mei instead of D.Va. Mm-hmm. Or they were running, Chronodota on Winston instead of Reinhardt. Like, they were not running. I mean, I saw Bertlog on Ana. Like, they just were not running traditional GOATs. And I don't know, it's like you said, they have a lot of flexibility, but when you have, I wasn't impressed with CKM on Baguette. So I think that's why they were trying to run unique forms of GOATs by having Shoyo on Baguette and CKM on anti-GOATs. And they were kind of running their own version. Like, if they were running traditional GOATs the whole time, I think it would have been closer. But their talent, like, that's a big thing, is their talent of the Sydney Drop Bears over everyone else seemed to just be like, well, we don't have to play GOATs to win. Like, they played Dive. They played some weird version of Dive on Hanami and won. Like, they had Widowmaker. They played Widowmaker and Tracer. So, I don't know. It was just weird. I mean, the Drop Bears are a very good team. Very good. Order was the better traditional GOATs team. That's just me.
Yeah. I mean, Drop Bears, when you've been as dominant as you have in a region, sometimes you can just shake things up a bit and really not have to worry about it. And that's really what like this entire series kind of felt like. When you had Shoyo on the diva, Jornation would try to come in, try to drop a grab, get absolutely nothing. It would just disappear. And I cannot wait for the alt eats to be in the kill feed, so we can finally, remove all the caster doubt when it comes to diva play. That'll be fantastic. But I'm just saying, like, when it comes to CKM on the Doomfist, after watching Contenders Korea and watching Element Mystic, seeing Sparkle on Doomfist basically just run-shotting through everyone, outside of Runaway, I mean, he still did good against Runaway, but it was not the easy clap, just dominance that we've seen against literally every other Korean team. But
you mean Runaways?
Runaway Season 3, the current Runaway roster. Not the ones that all got poached collectively. The ones that, came in, all got signed, went on to go undefeated, which is something that Runaway Season 1 and 2 did not do. FYI, that's a thing. But we've seen the evolution of Doomfist when it comes to anti-GOATS compositions. And CKM, like, it seemed to me like he was kind of torn on exactly how he wanted to approach the Doomfist. We've seen Doomfist go, like, one of three ways. You either go to dive the backline, you would look to displace, or you would try to uppercut the main tank and get him out of position. And really none of that was working for CKM. And that first round on Ilios was just clean as day for Order. It was 100-0. It was a clean sweep. And a lot of it was just the fact that Jornation was able to find a lot of cleanup with Zarya at this point. This is before Shoyo basically took over and just shut him down in most situations. But after the quick shutout in round 1, CKM, he still opts to run the Doomfist when we're over on Ruins. And, he has a good dive onto Merit, but Yuki is able to keep him up with the armor packs. And the support line for Order are just all over the kill feed, and they end up getting the first cap. Now, the Meteor Strikes for CKM, there were a couple that, paid pretty big. But I will say, like, when he knew he wasn't going to be able to secure a pick, he was very good at making sure that when he used the Meteor Strike, he would do it and land in a safe position. So he had that going for him. But across the board, the Doomfist play from CKM was pretty lackluster. Like, it's not what we would consider to be anything near an elite level, at least at the, the tier 2 scene. And when he made the Mei swap, that was definitely a more interesting choice, especially on the attack. There's been times where we've kind of seen, like, defensive Mei paired with the Doomfist to kind of, like, set up that additional ice wall for the rocket punches. But in this case, it was more setting up, popping the ice wall to land a charge. So it's still a charged attack, but it was more synergy with a Reinhardt play than some Order iteration of it. So I thought that was very unique. But across the board, drop bears, yes, it wasn't anything traditional. They threw a lot of different looks out there, and for the most part, those looks landed outside of the Doomfist play.
Yeah, I mean, the Doomfist play for those two maps, Ilios and Hollywood, by CKM was, like you said, he didn't impress. He wasn't detrimental to the team. It just, he did not impress like we have come to expect a lot of Doomfists to play. Like you said, a lot of his ults were just, where I'm going to use my ult almost as like a zone clearing type of thing and not actually to use anything. Like there was one point on Hom where he was just trying to get them all into the side room and he dropped his ult on top of the building. It was just like a wasted ult. And it just didn't come to fruition. Once he did switch to Mei on Hom, that was definitely something that was was interesting. To see, the attack May was unique to say the least, and it just worked out. The uniqueness of the compositions they ran. Like I said, Hanamura, if you want to see a unique like way to run this map, go watch this map. So game 3 of Sydney Drop Bears. Like, Sydney Drop Bears were just through kind of all out. And even in further map, 66. The weird composition that the quad DPS they ran at the beginning of Hanamura to try and bust goats, and it worked. It was just one of those things where they were using their superior talent to bully the other team, and it worked. It didn't work for the first 2 maps with Doomfist, but once they started really kind of throwing curveballs at him with May, with Widowmaker, with Tracer, with Hanzo, it's just, that's when things, the skill of the Drop Bears really started to take account. So it was interesting. I like the Sydney Drop Bears. They run a unique style that we're not used to seeing.
They do. But we've also, like, on Route 66, seen quad DPS basically become the norm to counteract goats, especially on that map. We really haven't seen it branch out too much. But I will say, as soon as Order were able to get that first point hold, I was like, okay, like, this is a momentum shift in this series. Order is going to get back in it. That did not happen. So on the Order attack, we're so used to seeing quad EPS, and Order basically come out, they're like, okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to win the Goats v Goats battle. And it was a rough start. So a Kraken opens up by getting the DMech on Adam, and he ends up finding Merit, which forces an early reset for Order. We then see the Graviton Surge coming out, which locks up Order, which allows for another clean fight for the Drop Bears. Mm-hmm. This is when both sides come in. They both pop their rally. They get all that armor up. Dronation lands a grab, which, is a pretty big deal considering that, Shoyo is a thing. And the grab, ends up getting met with a Sound Barrier, and then we see Chronodota just come in, land a counter shatter. And that was after Order had basically depleted their entire arsenal of ultimates. So Drop Bears are basically finding the majority of the kills, and Order are down to just 1 minute left on the clock at this point. So Chronodoto at this point, he ends up falling early to Dronation, and the Order are taking the fight, but the Drop Bears have more than enough time to have another attempt on the defense. And at this point, Drop Bears have 5 ultimates to work with on the final fight, so, pretty healthy ult economy to work with. Mm-hmm. And they drop down, and Quats looks to drop the Shatter, but that ends up getting blocked. And then they throw in the Self-Destruct. Quats ends up falling, so you have no main tank on the Order side. And then Jordation falls, Shoyo finds him, so, Shoyo... I'm sure Jordation is going to be seeing Shoyo in his nightmares. Probably for the rest of the week. I definitely feel for him. We've all kind of been there. Sometimes someone just has your number and can read you like a book. And Adam gets demeched, and we see, a less ditch effort from Order, bringing in the Wrecking Ball, trying to get the stall, but it's not enough. And at that point, Drop Bears move to match point. Now, first point hold on Route 66 is not something that's super uncommon. Route 66 goes one of 2 ways. You either get a first point hold, or you push very close to the end, and then you stall out. There's very little middle ground. We rarely ever see it end in, that streets phase, in the second part of the map. It's always at the front or at the end. So, while, yes, getting a first point hold is a pretty good win condition, it's not a guarantee, and with Order opting to, not try to do anything cheeky with quad DPS, which can definitely maximize potential with the high ground that is on Route 66, they were really fighting an uphill battle, and it wasn't enough. And for me, like, if they weren't going to be able to win Route 66, they were not going to be able to win that series.
Yeah, no, like I thought when Order first held Sydney Drop Bears, because Sydney Drop Bears did a complete team kill and they were pushing towards point A pretty quickly, but then Order and this was a lot on the the camera guys, like the people controlling, because we had no idea where Order was coming in from, and all of a sudden, like, you see the shield, and all of a sudden they come through the side door or the side entrance, whatever, and they get that full hold on point, before point A. I was like, okay, Order has a legit shot at this, and then you just see the complete and utter domination from the Drop Bears on this, and it's just. I thought Order might have a chance, but Sydney Drop Bears just took it over, and then you knew Sydney was going to win. Like when they go on to the next map in Busan, it was just like you could see the frustration play from Order in the bad positioning, bad ult usage, bad everything in regards to how they played on the last map, because they knew they kind of screwed their best chance at possibly coming back and beating the Sydney Drop and making it a 3-2 2-2 going into Busan. Instead they're going into Busan and they're down 3-1, and it's just not going to happen. So yeah, you could see the defeat in the play from Order after that map.
So with the win, Sydney Drop Bears would become back-to-back-to-back champions, winning all 3 seasons of Contenders in 2018. So they joined Fusion University in that regard with 3 championships to their name. And, the big question is, what's next for the Drop Bears? Are we expecting more sign-ins coming out of their camp? Like, are we going to see them maybe get signed to an academy team? Like, is this going to be another opportunity to see play from them in another region?
I mean, the thing is next season, I fully expect an Australian team. I fully expect an Australian team. And, I mean, if there's an Australian team, they're going to be signing the Sydney Drop Bears in a heartbeat. So, like, I think the Sydney Drop Bears will be a Contenders team shortly. I don't know if they will in this next season, because the next season for them will be before Season 3 of the Overwatch League, but they will be a Contenders team next year.
Yeah, and it is important to note that Contenders is going to have less seasons overall this year, because they dropped it from 3 to 2. So, with that being said, we do have a little bit of other Contenders news, which I want to jump ahead to really quick, and it is about an academy team. And that is that the Guangzhou Charge are set to form an academy team, as they have posted to Twitter looking for a head coach and a team manager. So, obviously they'll be competing in Contenders China, and this is going to be the first expansion team that we know of so far to field an academy team. So when it comes to the Chinese region in Contenders, they'd be the second academy team. The other one, of course, being Shanghai Dragons, who operate Team CC. Now, as an academy team, the Charge are guaranteed a spot in the first season of Contenders China 2019. If they don't do so well, there's always that chance that they might get relegated to Contenders Trial, where they would have to, vie for their spot back into Contenders. Now, there's some pretty big names in the Chinese scene. Yeah, we saw what China did in the World Cup this past year, which was phenomenal. And, we've already seen some of their representation get picked up for the Overwatch League. But there's a pretty big name in China that's been rumored to be joining this Charge Academy team, and that is Leave. So, we've seen what Leave can do in the World Cup. Do you feel like Leave is going to be the best person to kind of build a team around for this region, or, just this team in particular?
Yes. Leave is, he was him and Gu Shui in the World Cup were very noticeable. Like they were the the names you heard about with the Chinese World Cup team. So like he's the one that you probably want to throw as much money as possible at to get to sign with your contenders team. Now it is pretty much confirmed he's going to be joining them. I think I read somewhere that he actually announced it on a stream of his that he was going to be playing for them. Yeah, so this is someone you want to build your team around. Now, like NYXL or XL2 before the purge of NA players and the good Korean players on the team, like they did this too. They were building their academy team around Flower, or you can get that high name, big name player, and you want to build your contenders team around them because you want to build up momentum for when you sign them to play on your team in the Overwatch League once they're of age. Once our boy Sugar Free in 5 years turns 17, you're going to start seeing him pumped up more. More stuff's going to be going on with him because you want to pump them up before they get into the Overwatch League. They have a full year now of pumping up Leave on their, contenders team, and it's not like the Chinese contender scene is. There's a lot of dominant teams, especially after 3 new Chinese teams, and people in the Chinese World Cup, like people are starting to recognize that area. Leave is the kind of person who can carry a team to a championship. Because, well, it's Leave, and he's awesome. And he needs to be on either the Hanzo Spark or Chicago's team next year. Preferably Chicago's team.
Yeah, who knows? Well, anyways, get into the Overwatch League. We do have some news. So it is confirmed by the Overwatch League commissioner himself, Nate Nancer, that Overwatch League Season 2, Stage 1 will be played on the patch that is currently, as of today, on live servers. So what does that mean? Well, it means that, we get the armor changes, we get the Brigitte rally nerf, we get the D.Va defense matrix cooldown increase, we get the Reaper buff, which isn't going to amount to anything at the pro scene because everyone believes that Reaper is absolute trash, and I agree with Jake on this one thing.
You Jake sympathizer.
This is the only time I'm ever going to say that I agree with Jake. And that's it. But anyways, so what is this going to mean for the Overwatch League, Ed? Are we poised to see GOATs in Stage 1? Will we see a rise of anti-GOATs compositions? Will it be a mixture of both?
I think 75. It just is. But you're going to see more specialized maps where they have Doomfist come in to counter GOATs, and it'll be less detrimental. You're going to see like the D.Va nerf. I think the D.Va nerf is huge to her defense matrix. But who does that defense matrix really benefit the most?
The Zarius.
Yeah. So really, you nerfed and buffed GOATs at the same time with that change. So that is it's essentially, to me, that's that change is a wash. You turn Baguette's been nerfed like 4 times, 5 times, and she's still like, yep, nope, I'm still here. Deal with it. It's just like you're gonna deal with it. Reaper is not gonna be prevalent in meta. But what I think all this kind of all adds up to is more anti-GOAT stuff on certain portions of certain maps, like Numbani Point A. That could be a map, a point where, like, on defense, you may not want to run GOATs, or on offense, you may not want to run GOATs because of all the high grounds available. Like, stuff like that. You're probably going to see more of that, but GOATs will still be 75% of what you see. So be prepared for a lot of Zarya ults, anti-shatter, reverse shatter, Zenyatta ult, Lucio ult, all at the same time. Like, That's basically what's going to be, you know, happening.
Or, we'll just have a flashback to LFT OWL versus base tryhards on the first map where we go 5 minutes and everyone is still alive.
Yeah, like each match now takes 2.5 hours. Good luck. Europe, you get your wish.
Okay, I got it. That's why we're actually playing in less games per teams now. They didn't want to make sure that, everyone was burnt up because all of the maps are taken, an hour and a half on each side. So, we're trying to balance it out a little bit. But, for me, the thing is, it's like, well, okay, there's the armor changes, which technically is a buff to DPS. But then it's like, well, we're not in a DPS meta because everyone's playing tanks and supports. So what's that going to mean? And I'm like, okay, well, divas aren't going to have as much uptime on defense matrix. Okay, that just means more grabs will be coming out. But Zarya's are already the DPS of the GOATS compositions, so we're just making them more viable, okay? So Spree, he might still be safe on the Outlaws, so that's good for them. But Sombra's getting buffed quite substantially with the armor change, and Sombra is a pretty prominent part of anti-GOATS composition, so could we see a rise of Sombra Pharah? Possibly. But what's interesting to me is we have seen a lot of teams either stick to one method or the other. You have teams that just run GOATS, and that's all they practice, and then you have the teams that try to innovate. You have teams, and this is going to be a very bad example, but I'm going to use it anyway. Let's look at Mayhem Academy, since we have covered plenty of contenders NA. So, right. Mayhem Academy are one of the teams that are like, we're going to try to do both, right? We're going to try GOATS. They were not good at it. Okay, let's try anti-GOATS. They weren't very good at it. Is it better to try something different? Or is it better to try to specialize in one approach and work from there? Because in that case, it kind of blew up in their face. Or do you feel like at that level of play, at least, when we're talking about the Overwatch League here, do you feel like the skill differential when it comes to the different composition types isn't going to be as prevalent between different approaches in the game itself?
Well, so my feeling has always been GOATS takes less skill to perform than anti-GOATS. Like a good anti-GOATS team needs more skill and more teamwork to pull it off than actual GOATS. Because like me and you could make a GOATS team and make it successful. I'm not talking dominant, but we could make it successful. We couldn't go in, me and you, and do a successful anti-GOATS copy, though. So, like, a team like New York Excelsior, I can see them using all the talent that they have in the world and running a very successful anti-GOATS comp. I can see the Spitfire doing something like that. But I can't see someone like the Mayhem running anti-GOATS, or the Outlaws, or, maybe Dallas, but like a lot of the expansion teams are probably just going to be running pure GOATS because that will give them the best chance at winning. Whereas like the New Yorks, the Londons, the Gladiators, maybe even the Fusion and Seoul, are going to run the anti-GOATS and maybe sprinkle in some of the actual GOATS. But they're going to be able to run that a little bit better than everyone else because there's just more skill on those teams than anyone else, especially New York. I mean, New York is a team set up not to run GOATS. Like, that team is not a GOATS team. But they've never really played the meta. They've just played whatever they're good at.
Triple sniper, here we come. Ashe, Hanzo, Widow.
I would take it in a heartbeat. Because the thing is, under the right circumstances, that would actually work. It could. Like, Ashe is not a great counter to GOATS, but she's a little bit of a counter to GOATS. And then you throw in Bob, a useful Bob, not our Bob. Mm-hmm. And then, Hanzo, Arrow. Like, there's going to be different comps I think that we are not used to seeing in Overwatch League. That
Like
a
Symmetra
lot of these
Bastion.
teams. It could be like I mean, in all honesty, what's the best pure counter to shield tanks in the game is a Bastion melting a shield.
And it'll
Like,
be Zachary. If anyone's gonna
yeah,
do it, it'll be the fuel.
yeah, like it's like you don't think of it that way, but Bastion can melt a shield better than anyone in the game. Well, you can't run goats without a shield. You just can't. So maybe Bastion, they're running Bastion. Maybe they're going to run other things. Now, this is all wishful thinking on my part. When I know in the back of my head they're all just going to run goats. But I'm wishful thinking here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we have heard of some like visa issues with some players. Effect tweeted out that he's home, so he might actually be in LA now. So that's good news for the fuel. I know for Train 2 Hunters, one of their player visas was denied, so they're working with an immigration lawyer to try to resolve the issue. And that was for their DPS player Yang Xiaolon. So, or is it Yun Zhao? I can't remember how it's pronounced. Whatever. It's Chinese names. Everyone's going to get them confused. But this is not anything out of the ordinary from China. Last year, some of the Shanghai Dragons were dealing with the same thing. I know Sky was kind of held up, as was one of their coaches. But Chengdu are set to open up their season against the Guangzhou Charge on February 15th. So hopefully it works out so he can get his visa approved, because you don't really want to start your season shorthanded, but at least for the Hunters, they do have other pieces at that DPS line, so regardless if it's a GOATS meta or not, they will still have enough people to field a team, so that's a plus.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is stuff all the time, and honestly, you can attribute a lot of government just like, I mean, we don't know what's all affected by the shut, so stuff like this just can be put on the back burner a lot of the time. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. I think everything will work itself out.
All right, well, moving on, this will lead into our main discussion for tonight. And I know we're already almost at 2 hours, so I don't want to spend as much time on this per se. Because, if you listen to Overwatch League Network, you already know my 10 through 6 rankings. So, Ed, why don't you start us off with your rank at number 10?
All right, so my rank at number the Shanghai. I think they did enough, and they, well, by enough, basically replaced 70 to 80% of their team.
They purged. They had everyone fight. Okay, I'm gonna quick tangent here. So you mentioned the purge earlier for XL2. Yes. So this is what happened. So you have the dragons, and then you had the mayhem, and they threw a bunch of weapons in a room, and they fought to the death, right? Or fought for survival on the team per se, and then for Tavik, this is going to explain why he's still on the team. He's not there to drive the bus. He was there providing kebabs to the Koreans on the roster, and that's the only reason why Awesome Guy, and Tavik are on the lineup for Mayhem.
Good to know. Okay. So I think they had 2 people left over. Dia and Gaguri.
Fearless.
Was Fearless. Okay. Mm-hmm. So they got 3. But they basically switched over their entire team. Like, and it's not like they switched it over to a bunch of, no names.
Right.
Like, I think most of them came from Lucky Future, if I'm not mistaken.
Try again. Ron Regent.
Kangdu.
Kangdu
Panther.
So the runner-ups.
Right. They were the runner-ups, yes. I was just looking at Dio. Came from Lucky Future. But the team's good. And the reason I think a lot of people have them, like a lot of people have them in the 10, 11, 12 range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Spider has them at 9. It's just, we've put faith in them before and been burned horribly. Like, this is a team that could finish top 5. but nobody's stupid enough to put them in the top 5 because, well, they went 0-40. Like, you know, they have not won a match in Overwatch League history. So I don't think anybody wanted them in the top 5, but I could see them ending up in the top 5. So I like this team. They're going to be fun to watch. I was reading something where Gaguri is actually impressing the hell out of everyone with her off tank play. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what they do. But who do you have at number 10, Totem?
Well, for me, at number 10, I have the LA Valiant. So, you know, this team made quite a bit of moves outside of who they're dropping. They really only added one piece, which was Kuki from the Seoul Dynasty, who was their backup main tank. So we know Soon and Finzi are both on Paris Eternal at this point. Numlocked moved over to Contenders Europe, where he competed for the British Hurricane. Verbo was one of 820 people on the Sky Foxes roster, which didn't really bode well for anyone on that team, or, you know, didn't equate to wins either. But they kept a lot of the core pieces. So really the biggest thing about the Valiant is, okay, how big of a blow is losing Soon? And when you look at the rankings, I feel like out of all of the teams, the Valiant are one of the teams that have had the most fluctuation on power rankings for a lot of people. I've seen them as high as like 6, and I've seen them as like low as like 14 or 15. There's a lot of middle ground here, and it's really hard to kind of tell where it's going to land. Now, this is the team that I struggled with the most, because to me, they could be anywhere from 10 to 6. And if they're going to do good, and if they're going to, you know, reach that same level that they were at in Season 1, it's going to be off the back of their front line. Fate and Space were one of the elite front lines in the game. They're still going to be. And I have a lot of faith in both of them. You know, Space came in, and he really, outside of Fury, redefined what it meant to be an off-tank in Overwatch. He was getting a high amount of kills. The pressure that he put on the front line was immeasurable. And, you know, basically with D.Va players, you know, you have Space and Fury, and then you kind of have like a tier 3, or like a C rank D.Va, and then you have Cool Matt. Like that's a 3 levels of D.Vas that you have in the Overwatch League. But you know, I feel like a lot of people are just looking at this team and they're like, okay, they don't have Soon, so, you know, they don't really have a hit scan player. Well, they could put KSF in that role. Yeah, but he didn't do so good. And then they kind of forget that they kind of already have a hit scan player, but he's just been playing support. You know, they have Kariv, and if you guys watch the Pro Pugs, like, Kariv was one of the first picks in a lot of them, because everyone knows the extent of his hero pool. They know, like, he can just get subbed in and out really on any role, and we've already seen him perform on Hitscan on the Valiant. And to me, you know, they've been spending so much time kind of trying to put Izayaki in the forefront when it comes to the social media presence. It makes sense for them to promote Izayaki off of the bench to play that, you know, the Lucy or whatever, or Zenyatta in this case, because Custa will be main support. And then just move Kariv over to Hitscan DPS, and you're looking a lot better than what you were, rather than just saying, okay, like, we're going to put all of our eggs in KSF. You know, that's going to be in our basket. Let's see how he does. He didn't do so well in Season 1, but Season 2 is his chance to shine. And I cannot imagine them going that route. KSF, to me, you know, out of all of the Overwatch League sign-ins to date, he's still bottom of the barrel sign-in for me, and I don't feel like he is someone to keep on a roster. Like, I'm shocked that he wasn't dropped, but, you know, maybe Valiant sees something in him that I don't, but from what we have seen, nothing has really stood out. So for me, Kariv is going to fill the hitscan role. Soon, while he's been great, I don't feel like he was as big of a blow to the roster as some people are making out to be, but I feel like Valiant, you know, anywhere from 10 to 6 is going to be a good spot for them. And I don't feel like the Soon trade is going to come back and bite him in the ass.
Yeah, no, I agree with you with the Valiant. They could finish. I mean, I had them, but they could have easily been 7. Like, they lost one person, and were ready to move them down from top 4 where they were last year to outside the top 10 because they lost one person. So, no, I agree with that. So, number 9, we actually both had the same team for number 9, and that is the dumpster fire. That is the Dallas Fuel. Like, looking over my team, I don't know why the hell I put them at 9. I don't think they're the number 9 team. Like, I should have had them lower. Like, I'm just not one of those. I'm not sold on this team right now. You know, like, I don't know how Effect's gonna play. If Effect is even gonna play, because you know it's gonna be in a GOATS meta. Like, so if it's a GOATS meta, there's no use for AKM to be there. You know, there might not be Effect for Taimu or Effect to be there. You know, so you're looking at, you have Unco, Harry Hook, and Closure in there, and then you have RCK, Zachary, and OGE. Like, that could be your 6 right there, running GOATs. I just don't know. It's like, they added a lot, but I don't know if they added enough to change what the team was last year. So I don't know. I think I put them at 9 because I love Zach. Plain and simple. Like, none of the rest of the team really stands out to me. I don't know. Why did you put them at 9?
A little something called momentum. Okay, so flashback, season 1, stage 4. You know, everyone is just looking at the dumpster fire. They're like, their season's over. They got nothing to play for. What could they possibly do? Brigitte drops. Mickey switches off of Diva, goes to Brigitte. Dallas Fuel play her like 60% more than literally every other team in the league. And then they just crush people. People can't adapt. So, to me, like, when you look back at the Dallas Fuel, it's always going to come down to the coach and staff on this team. Jane and Arrow are both big brain coaches. Jane, without question, he does so much for, Overwatch, just across the board. His content creation, he's no doubt in my mind he'll be a head coach next season. But, you have Zachary, who's worked under Arrow before, and in such a short amount of time, they were able to kind of pave the way in regards to Brigitte play in the league, and then everyone else kind of started to use it as a blueprint. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to a GOATS meta, if that is what we're going to be seeing in Stage 1, which chances are extremely likely for, a high percentage of overall play. But Effect will absolutely have a spot on this team. He's gonna be in LA. He'll play Zarya in the GOATS composition because he is a Tracer player, and the Tracer player almost always plays a Zarya. And to me, it's just a question of who's playing Brigitte on this roster. Are they going to have Mickey on it because he's kind of been the one to take that helm already, or are they just going to put that faith in Zachary? And a lot of people, we talked about this too. Like, when it comes to Zachary, everyone's just going to look at the World Cup. That's the last thing people saw him in. United States, they crapped the bed, they didn't do so hot, they got overwhelmed, didn't do so hot, and then they put their stamp of disapproval on Zachary, and they saw the sign-in, and they just raised their eyebrow, right? Like, there was a huge uproar when they announced Zachary's sign-in. So, for me, you had to look at it like this. Closure, he had a pretty good Season 1. He didn't always get to see a ton of play, just due to the fact that The London Spitfire support duo were relatively at the very high end of the league. And you have RCK, who comes out of Europe, who is kind of untested in regards to top-level talent, but he's done pretty well on the Divas so far. So if RCK is able to come in and maybe, I'm not going to say take over the Diva role, but if he's able to add another layer of depth to that role, it's definitely going to shore up some of the weaknesses on this team. But at the end of the day, I feel very confident in the coach and staff. If there's going to be a team that's going to look to break the meta or innovate the meta in any fashion, it's going to be the Dallas Fuel. And if Stage 4 is any indicator of how this team is going to do, then chances are this team is going to be on the up and up moving forward. So I expect better things from Dallas Fuel. I'm not expecting us to keep the moniker of dumpster fire. Maybe it'll be something else, but...
Speak for yourself.
Maybe you still will, but I'm not going to tell Bob to, put the trash can away just yet, but we might get to that point. If they have a really solid Stage 1, then it'll be a safer bet. But for me, I have faith in the pieces that they picked, and OGE, I feel like just doesn't get enough credit on his role. So, this is more of a redemption arc for Dallas Fuel, for me anyway.
No, I get it. I mean, I think they're better than what I'm giving them. It's just, I can't go based off of how they ended last season because they were almost half the amount of teams. They basically replaced two-thirds of their team. AKM is non-existent. Effect, we don't know what kind of mental state he's going to be in. Zachary, we don't know what he's going to play. RCK, we don't know what he's going to do. It's just, there's a lot of question marks, but I will be giving the Dallas Fuel the benefit of the doubt on this one. I'm willing to go that far at least. But I am going to have a quick, trigger finger on making them plummet down the ranks based on how they are the first 2 weeks. So they may fall down into Toronto Defiant, Chengdu Hunter territory if they really tank the first week or two. So, number 8, who do you have at number 8?
I have my soulmates, aka the Soul Dynasty. So,
What?
Here's the thing. A lot of people are going to be like, we've seen this happen in Season 1. Okay, Dynasty go out, they sign Lunatic Kai. Everyone just immediately top 5. This is going to be one of the best teams in the league. Top 3 even, in most situations. Maybe top 2. Maybe even the best team. And things happened. It was a very complicated season. So much to the point where, Miro is not playing anymore. He's a streamer for Gen G Esports. We kind of had the scene where we were trying to figure out, well, maybe Guido shouldn't play Projectile, and, he should just be flex support to, maybe give Ryuji Han some rest. And we're like, well, Miro's been struggling, let's just... F it. Let's just throw Ryuji Han in on main tank and see what happens. And then, he did okay. It wasn't, anything great. But, I'm trying to think how I would describe his playstyle. It was serviceable, but it was short-lived. It was better than Tank Mu. Ryuji Ka was better than Tank Mu. But at the end of the day, it was nothing special.
But, alright, so you're talking about the main tank play. I can't remember. Didn't they go out and get a fairly decent main tank? I don't know. I can't remember. Who did they get at main tank?
I don't have the censor beep ready, but they signed Fisher.
Oh, yeah, they signed the best main tank in the league last year. I'm sorry. I feel you can't really judge them on their main tank play last year when they signed the best main tank in the league to play for them this year.
So
Just throwing that out there.
If you're perplexed as to why I don't have them higher, Ed, because I honestly I don't have the rankings up right now. I cannot see where you put Soul Dynasty. For all I know, you probably have them in top 5. I don't know, but
oh, I do.
I
do.
Here's the thing with me. Okay, like one part of this is definitely me being I don't want to get gut punched again. That is without question still in the back of my mind because not making it into any playoffs in Season 1 hurts me to my soul. But anyways, the biggest thing for me is it's a change of play style. It's a matter of how are the Dynasty going to be able to adapt to Fisher? Because the Dynasty have never been that sort of aggressive playstyle. They're more of the adaptive playstyle, very similar to London. But the difference is, London is kind of a hybrid of New York Excelsior and Seoul Dynasty. New York is very good at being that aggressive, in-your-face, pedal to the metal all of the time, just relentlessness. And then with London, they can do that, but then it could also be adaptive, where they can be more relying on reactions and then kind of like just countering. And Seoul's always been more of that type of team and not really the aggressive type. So I feel like early on, it's going to take a toll on the Dynasty to the point where it's going to take a little bit of time in order to build that sort of synergy and kind of see how the team is going to work around Fisher. But if Fisher is going to be able to come into this team and really do what he did for, say, the LA Gladiators, Dynasty are going to be going from like a 10 to 12 team that, they were it probably would have been pegged at if we still had 20 teams at last season, to top 6 this season. Fisher is just that kind of player. So for me, it's just about the adaptability and whether or not Fisher is actually going to be a good fit on this lineup. But if Fisher can come in, create the space, I 100% expect the Fleta meta to return in full force.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to go over, I kind of ruined it already, my thoughts on Seoul Dynasty next week when we go over our top 5. Because, as a non-soulmate, I have faith in. But I actually had at number 8 the San Francisco Shock, and I actually have them lower than everyone else, every other podcaster we have. So Ren, Slambo, Spider, you, Julian, and the reason I do have them so much lower is for one reason. They have so much DPS in a non-DPS meta. At a certain point, you have too much DPS, and it's detrimental to your team. When you look at their DPS, they have Striker, Rascal, Architect, Sinatra, Baby Bay. You have 5 starting DPS on your team, and there's no DPS in the meta. How do you have 5 DPS and get them playtime when none of them can actually play because nobody needs a Widowmaker, a Junkrat, a Tracer, something like that. So I judge this team off of their tanks. So you have the tanks of Nevix and Smurf and Super. Sorry, can't forget Super. The actual main tank. Choi Hoban is probably one of the most underrated diva players in the league. But I just don't know how the rest of the team is going to handle the GOATS meta that is there. Are we going to see Sinatra? Reinhardt? Because, I know you said Tracer players usually are always Zarya. Well, Sinatra's been playing a lot of Reinhardt now. has also been playing a lot of good Zarya. Like, what is going to happen with all these people? Is Rascal like they signed Striker, and Striker is the best Tracer player on this team, which is crazy. But like, are they just not going to play Striker then? Because if you're playing Sinatra as Zarya, then that means you're sitting Architect probably, unless you put Architect on Baguette, but you're sitting Baby Bay, you're sitting Striker, you're sitting like you're sitting all these top tier players and not playing them. It's just, if it was a different meta, I would have put them in the top 5. But since it's the GOATS meta, this team is not built to play GOATS. So that's the only reason I have them and higher.
All right. Well, at number 7, I have the Hangzhou Spark.
Go to hell.
So we have the tank line of Gushui, No Smite, and Rhea. Support line IDK, Revenge, and Bebe. And then they have pretty good DPS quad of Adora, Bazi, Godsby, and Crystal. Okay, so I've already hyped up Gushui more than I can, more than a lot of people, at this point. I mean, let's just throw it out there. I've already done it on the Overwatch League Network. I did it, at BlizzCon, during the World of Podcast panel. Called it, just saying. Everyone else was just like, oh, I'm just gonna show my support for Team North America or United States.
Be like, how do you pronounce that name? Guxway? Guxy? I don't know.
Gushu? There's like 8,000 ways that people pronounce Gushui. But anyways, Gushui, you don't sign him and not expect to play him. That being said, No Smite was one of the biggest snubs not getting signed for Season 1 of the Overwatch League. He was one of the top main tanks in Korea at that time, and for him and Godsby both to not be like a mid-season sign-in, I'm still baffled by. So I am very happy to see a team sign them, that being the Hangzhou Spark, which is a team that, you and I both are really looking forward to seeing play. So outside of that, I really like Crystal. Crystal is one of the premier DPS players out of China. And time again, Crystal has flexed the flex muscle. I mean, this is someone that can come in and play 7 to 12 heroes if absolutely necessary. So when it comes to the DPS core of this team, and you can talk about perception of meta or what meta we'll actually see, but when it comes to the hero pool, this is not one of those players like Tavik who can play all of these things, just not well. So, all in all, Godsby, Crystal, absolutely monster DPS duo, and, for a lot of people, they might be a bit more unknown, because, not everyone watches the Korean scene, not everyone watches the Chinese scene, but at the end of the year, the Chinese representation is going to show its good side on this team, and have maybe not the best results on another team, aka, Chengdu.
Mm-hmm. No, this team, I'm insanely high on this team, and I've been pretty straightforward with that. I think the sleeper on this team is Bebe. I think Bebe Zenyatta is going to be pretty good on this team. But like you said, Godsby, Crystal, Gushui, No Smite, Rhea, IDK. Like, this is a good team. This is going to be a very good team. I'll be interested to see how they play together. But I will talk about them next week. Spoilers. So my number 17 is the Philadelphia Fusion. I get it. They were in the championship game. But if you listen to us at during last season, the show last season, I've never been high on the Fusion. Ever. They're one of those teams that just baffled me. They have a good DPS core in EQO and Carpe, probably one of the best. I
I like their support. I don't love their support. I think their best support player was signed this year. An Elk. I never have been a Boombox or Neptuno fan. You judge me all you want, but I just haven't ever been. Fraggy, well, I don't. So Sato, Poco is hit or miss on the way he plays. Like, you know, Poco bombs can only go so far. Like, you can hit a Poco bomb, but that's one fight that your Poco bomb hit. What happened to the 3 other fights while you were building your ultimate? Like, so I don't know. I think they're going to do good. I'm just not sold on this team. You know, again, this is another one where their biggest strength is the meta's biggest weakness. Like, you know, Carpe and EQ are the strength of the team. Their DPS is the strength of the team, in my mind. And when you are in a meta with no DPS characters, really, when your strongest point is DPS, that hurts your team. So that's, I think I have them they should be. But I've never been sold on this team. Plain and simple.
What I will say about Philadelphia Fusion, who I'm not going to be ranking tonight,
spoiler,
is the curious thing that I want to watch is with Elk. So Elk is coming from Fusion University, who has never lost in Contenders North America, who has already played on a mixed roster. How is a loss in the Overwatch League going to impact his mental state? And the other thing is, like, well, he's already used to working with some pretty damn good Korean talent. So he's used to being a shot caller. So is that just automatically going to put him as a main start on this team over Neptuno? Is it going to be a case of, well, you know, maybe if they're running EQ on Ashe where they want Neptuno to be on Mercy to get the damage boost, maybe that kind of pushes Elk kind of like in the back a bit. You know, there's a lot of different factors at play here, but Elk, in regards to rookie talent, you know, young talent at that, is one of those players who, you know, if you watch him stream, if you watch any of his educational stuff, he is a very big brain player, and I feel like out of a majority of the players, out of career longevity, I would definitely put him near or at the top of that list. So I'm very excited to see what he's able to do on a grander stage, just because we've seen how much he's been able to open things up when he was on Fusion University. Anyway, so this will lead to my number 6, which is the San Francisco Shock. Now, you know, you already kind of like brushed up on, you know, some of the sign-ins, but they also picked up a pretty damn good flex support in Violet, who you didn't even touch up on at all.
I did not.
And yes, you know, they picked up Smurf, they signed Rascal, they got Striker from Boston Uprising. Let me rephrase that. They saved Striker from the Boston Uprising because, you know, things going on behind the scenes. You know, there's a lot of drama, a lot of divide there between Korean talent and literally everyone else on the team. That's besides the point. But they got rid of Dante. They shipped out. You know, I'm so used to the phrase like shipping out to Boston. That's not the case here. He went to the Houston Outlaws. You know, Outlaws have other than a Tracer player, you know, they have a Sombra player. Pretty good, damn good one at that. Probably the best Sombra in the league from what we've seen. But, you know, they got rid of the deadweight. They got rid of Nomi. They got rid of Dak. They got rid of IDQD. And yes, I know he's one of the OGs. He's a good player. The fall-off was already there when he got signed to the Overwatch League. Mm-hmm. You know, I love IDQD as a streamer, but he was never going to be at that level for the Overwatch League, at where he's at in his career. But at the end of the day, why do I have them at number 6? Totem. Like, you always trash Sinatra every chance you can. And yes, you're absolutely right. I am not a fan of Sinatra. That is no secret. I am a huge fan of Striker, though. So when I saw Striker get picked up, I was like, that bench just got a whole lot more expensive. Maybe they'll, like, gold-plate it. I don't know. I don't know what you do to, like, spruce up a bench. But Striker is an absolute monster sign-in. And, when we talk about GOATS variations, the subbing out a Diva player in favor of running a Mei, has been pretty prominent. And they promoted Rascal from Energy Esports, who happens to be a pretty monster Mei player himself. So, for me, I'm very confident in the players that they have. You mentioned Choi Hyo-bin being pretty underrated at the Diva role. I absolutely agree with that. But, Sleepy and Violet is really a toss-up. I don't know who's going to start on this team. Violet tends to be a bit more prominent in mine, just because he is the more aggressive of the two in regards to playstyles. But Sleepy, he did pretty good on the Shock, but I wouldn't say, like, he was, like, top 5. But he always seems to be kind of, like, in the discussion. So, for me, a lot of this is just going to boil down to what's going to go on at the main tank position. That's really the glaring issue on this team. Super, this is someone that they're very confident in, and he just hasn't quite hit that level for a lot of people. And then, they went out, they got Smurf, who played for GGEA, who was the Houston Outlaws Academy team before they kind of imploded. And, there was that entire mess in Tier 2. We're not going to go over that again.
Kind
of
imploded.
There was a lot of stuff happening in Tier 2 since, like, Overwatch League. Not just them, there was another kind of Academy team, whatever. It's Toronto, whatever. But Krusty moving over to the Shock is absolutely massive. We saw what he was able to do with Boston when Boston was actually good. Striker coming with is a huge deal. And I feel like as long as, we have flex options in the game and they're at play, this is going to be one of the elite teams. They have a deep DPS roster that can cover a lot of different things that some of these other teams just won't be able to. But when we talk about actual potential, when it comes to different positions, this team has top potential at almost each rank. The only question mark is main tank. So, in their case, I hope that Super and Smurf have been rounding out, their respective roles. Maybe one of them has been practicing a lot of Orisa, to maybe, like, work in some of these bunker compositions. Maybe one has primarily just been working on their Reinhardt play. So as long as they're able to shore up some of the glaring issues that they had at that specific spot, this team is going to be pushing higher and higher. It's just a matter of, well, are we finally going to see the Shock reach that potential that, we keep hearing, that organization talk about? Because this is, in Season 1, the Shock were always that team where it was always, we gotta wait until, Stage 3, Stage 4, when they have all the pieces that they've been hyping up. But I really feel like they'll be able to push through that barrier this season.
Nice. Okay. We're going to pick of the night, my number 6, and I am going to go with the Vancouver Titans. Now, this is kind of a coin flip between a lot of people, as Vancouver, Hangzhou, Spark, like who's going to be the best new team? I've been kind of Spark or the Finger Bangs since the get-go, and so I have them higher than the Titans. And it's not just because I'm a fan of the Spark. I have been very adamant about the bringing in whole teams into the Overwatch League has never worked out. And I don't expect it to work out now. Like, that's one of the biggest things I have. Like, now we're, like, the top 6, we're just going to be nitpicking on little things here and there with every team we talk about. And that's one of the things I can nitpick with them about. Like, I could go with that the fact that they have only one tank and one flex tank. Like they're running 4 DPS, 3 support, and then a flex tank and a tank. Like, they don't have the depth on the front line. Now, granted, Bumper and Janu are pretty darn good in the front line, but like, it's just, you're looking, when you get towards the top, you're looking at the little things. And do not hold back the amount of bite I have for Totem and Spider and Slambo in not wanting to rate the Runaways ahead of my finger bangs going into season 2. There was no way I could put them in the top this morning. It just wasn't happening. So I have the Titans at number 6. I'm the only one out of any of our podcasts that has them at number outside of the top 5, I believe it was. Wait, no, me and Ren and Julian. So me and the new guys spiting you guys. Like, me and Ren and Julian are trying to spite Slambo, Spider, and Totem, who are like, let's all put them in the top 5. Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah,
so,
that's exactly what we did. We all got in Discord and we saying exactly yo ho ho as we were doing our rankings.
Exactly.
In unison.
That's that. Well, I mean, not Slambo because he's in the abyss.
Yeah.
But it's just at this point we're just nitpicking and we're just going with who our favorites are in the top 5, 6. Like, there's no true rhyme or reason. Like, everyone's gonna have probably the same top 2. Between who do you like more, the Spitfire or New York? And then 3, 4 is probably going to be around the same. The LA Gladiators are those teams for like everyone. So it's just, I just happen to have the Vancouver Titans fall to number 6 behind the Hanzu Spark.
Boo.
So, boo. But so that is my number 6.
All right. Well, I know, getting a little long-winded. We're probably gonna be like 2.5 hours by the time we get out of here.
Tonight.
We're gonna close it out. I mean, we had a little bit more this week. We covered 2 regions. Both grand finals and
9 hours of
8 episodes.
contenders.
It was a lot of contenders. But anyways, let's close out the show. So if you guys want to support us, one of the best ways to do that is to go leave us a review over on iTunes. We're always looking for ways to improve the show. So if you guys, like something in particular, or maybe you don't like something that we do, please let us know. And we did get a new review this week. So Ed, why don't you go ahead and read off this review in emoji talk?
Okay, so we're going to go with Brazilian exchange rate from hearts to stars. So we got a 5-star review from Lolita Locapapi out of Brazil. So the Brazilian currency is 4 heart emojis equals 5 stars on it. I don't know how the exchange rate works in that way, but we are going to go with it. So thank you very much for the review and the update on the Brazilian exchange rate.
Absolutely, and I believe that's even our first review out of Brazil as well, so that's awesome. But anyways, if you guys want to find additional Overwatch content, be sure to check out our website for Overwatch Recall. So that's where you can find a listing of several different Overwatch League, and Path to Pro podcasts. That's at owlnshow.com/OWRecall. And then every Sunday night, we release episodic listings of all the latest content, which will be available not only on our website, but also on Twitter. So be sure to follow Overwatch Recall at OWRecall. But Ed, we have a number of different ways to contact the show, so why don't you let our viewers and listeners know how to do that?
All right. Well, you can reach us on the Overwatch. You can reach our website, which will be at owlnshow.com. We do have a YouTube, and that would be youtube.com/c/OWRecall. Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord, so come join us over there at discord.me/OWL show. We are streaming presently on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are Twitch affiliates, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon and use that Amazon Prime to subscribe to us for free. Our podcast network does stream regularly, so on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, we have the Watch League Network. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, we have our brand new podcast with me, Totem, Blazing Bob, and Julian Goulian, OWL by the Numbers. That is a Fantasy Overwatch League podcast. On Wednesdays, normally Wednesdays, we have this show, Heroes Never Die, and that's at 5 p.m. Pacific that we record. And then generally on Thursdays and Fridays, we will have a host stream at 7:30 p.m. Pacific, when they're available to do so. We are also now presently on Patreon at patreon.com/OWL Network. So we recently launched our network's Patreon page for those who want to support our Overwatch network even further. Tiers start at just $1 month. Any help you give us is much appreciated. No, we're not, requiring it. It's just one of those things. If you want to help support us even further, help us get great content out there, go ahead and donate to us that way. You can contact me on Twitter at watch on Twitter, and then I'm basically always helping out the streams on this channel. Totem, where can they find you?
Well, I am over on Twitter at TotemlyDrunkCTR, and if I'm live, of course, I'll be live here on this channel 3-4 days a week at twitch.tv/OWLN show. But guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us for yet another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 144. I am your host, Totally Drunk, joined by Edinar, and we are planning on raiding another channel. I know Blazing Bob is streaming, and by the looks of it, he is storming the seas with some other Overwatch podcasters.
Those bastards that are going to lose to me.
Yeah, looks like
Fantasy Overwatch.
Yeah, Bob is scrubbing it up with the Blevins, Deathblow, as well as I Play Games from Omniclab / I'll recap. But we're gonna go, we'll raid them. We'll close out the show. So stick with us real quick while we raid them. But we hope to see you guys back on Monday for the next episode of Overwatch League Network. And if you can't make it, you can always stop by tomorrow, hopefully, if Spider is streaming. But with that being said, guys, have a good night.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Heroes Never Die. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HND Overwatch and join us on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show.
Let's go ahead and send the host over.
Network, thank you for the host.
Middle sails up.
Sorry, I did not.
Oh, wait, that's not it at all.
I'm
Okay.
coming.
All
Thank you
right.
for the host. I did not recognize the name for a second there.